All right, let's talk about teaching root. If you've ever tried it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It can feel, well, impossible. It's one of the most amazing board games ever made, for sure, but man, it is tough to get to the table. So today, we're going to change that. We're going to break down the process and give you a super clear, structured way to teach the Woodland War.
First things first, you have to lean into the theme. I mean, just look at them. They're adorable. But here's the secret. This is not some friendly get-together. This is war. The whole magic of Root is that cute but cutthroat vibe. And using that contrast, that's your first teaching tool. It pulls new players in and kind of warns them that behind these sweet little faces is a seriously deep, strategic game.
And that brings us right to the big problem, doesn't it? The reason Root is so hard to teach is because of its famous asymmetry. See, you're not actually teaching one game, you're teaching 4 totally different games that just happen to be smashing into each other on the same map. Every single player has their own rulebook, their own way to score, their own way to win. It's wild. And yeah, that's where people's eyes glaze over, but trust me, we're going to make it simple.
So, here's our game plan. We're going to start with a solid foundation, the rules that everybody shares. Then, we'll hit each of the 4 base game factions, one by one. We'll give you a little story for each one and a simple place to start. Easy.
Okay, before we get into what makes everyone different, you gotta understand what makes them the same. This is, without a doubt, the most important first step. If you can get your players to lock in these core ideas, all the weird faction stuff becomes way easier to explain. They'll have a mental shelf to put all the new information on.
So check this out. This right here is the rhythm of the entire game. Doesn't matter if you're a cat, a bird, or a mouse, your turn always looks like this. You have Birdsong, which is kind of your get-ready phase. Then there's Daylight. That's when you do all your cool stuff, your main actions. And finally, Evening is for cleanup and drawing cards. Birdsong, Daylight, Evening. Get them to say it with you. It's the heartbeat of the game.
Next up, this word, rule. It's absolutely fundamental. It's what determines who controls what. And it's super simple. In any clearing on the board, just count up the warriors and buildings. Whoever has the most pieces rules that space. Now, the key thing to remember, and you gotta stress this, is that if it's a tie, nobody rules. This is so important, because rule is what lets you move your armies around and project your power across the map.
And finally, what's the one thing everyone has in common? The finish line. 30. The very first player to hit 30 victory points wins, instantly. Game over. Now, how you get those points, well, that's where your faction comes in. But no matter what path you take, the goal is always the same. It's a race to 30. Okay, our foundation is built. Now for the fun part, the factions.
Let's kick things off with the Marquise de Cat. The way I always introduce them is as the established empire. They're already on the board when the game starts, they control everything, and their whole plan is to turn this beautiful woodland into an industrial engine. They are the industrialists.
So the cats are all about resource management. It's a simple loop. In Birdsong, you get 1 wood token at each of your sawmills. Then, in Daylight, you spend that wood to build more buildings, workshops, more sawmills, recruiters. The more you build, the more points you score. Their entire game is about building and protecting that supply chain. And for a brand new Marquise player, the first turn is dead simple. Just tell them, use one of your actions to build. Put a new sawmill on the board so you get more wood next turn, or build a recruiter to get more cats on the ground to defend your stuff. Just get that engine started right away.
And now for their complete opposite. If the cats are the Empire, the Woodland Alliance is the Rebellion. These are the guerrilla fighters. They literally start with nothing on the board, hiding in the shadows, slowly building support among the oppressed creatures of the forest.
The Alliance is playing a totally different game. They're not building an engine of wood. They're building an engine of outrage. It's so cool. They gather these supporter cards, and then they spend them to put sympathy tokens on the map, which scores them points. And then, and this is their big move, once they have enough sympathy somewhere, they can start a revolt, wiping out all the enemy pieces in that clearing and putting up a permanent base of operations. Their first turn, just as easy. You tell the player, look at the cards in your hand, find a clearing on the board that matches one of those cards, spend the supporters, and boom, you place a sympathy token. That's it. They're on the board, they've made their presence known, and they've already scored points. All right, let's talk about the old guard, the Eyrie Dynasties. So we've got industry with the cats and insurgency with the Alliance. The Eyrie, they're like a rigid, powerful computer program. They're the former rulers of the woods, and they are coming back to restore their glory under a very strict set of rules.
The whole game for the Eyrie revolves around this thing called the decree. Think of it as a list of orders that they must follow every single turn, and each turn they have to add a new card, a new order to that list. So they get more and more powerful, but it also gets harder and harder to do everything. And if they ever fail, if they can't complete an order, they collapse into turmoil. It's a catastrophe. They lose points, their leader and their whole plan gets wiped clean. It is the definition of high risk, high reward.
So your first turn advice for the Eyrie player is all about being careful. You have to tell them, look, add a card to your decree that you are 100% positive you can complete next turn. Don't get fancy. A simple move into a clearing you already rule is usually the safest bet, because one mistake on turn 1 can lead to a total disaster on turn 2.
So we've got an empire, a rebellion, and a crumbling monarchy. But what if you don't want to deal with any of that? What if you don't care about armies or territory? What if you just want to be a lone adventurer, wandering the woods and playing everyone against each other?
Well, my friend, then you play the Vagabond. This isn't just another faction. It's like a completely different type of game got dropped right into the middle of this war. The Vagabond is a single pawn on the board, a total wild card with their own goals, their own quests, and a totally unique way of seeing the world.
See, the Vagabond could not care less about ruling clearings. They care about two things: items and relationships. Their whole turn is about managing their inventory. They exhaust boots to move, swords to fight, teapots to help other factions. And when they help people, their relationship gets better, which scores them points. They can even team up with another player and win the game with them. It's a completely different way to play.
And their first turn is all about getting more gear. The best thing a new Vagabond player can do is just slip into a forest and then use a torch to explore one of those ancient ruins on the map. That's how they find more items, and items are the fuel that makes the whole Vagabond engine run. Okay, let's put it all together. The teaching strategy is actually pretty simple when you look at it this way. First, you build that solid foundation with the rules everybody shares, the 3 phases, what it means to rule, and the race to 30 points. Then, you introduce each faction not as a boring list of rules, but as a character. You've got the Industrialists, the Insurgency, the Programmed Aristocracy, and the Wild Card. It makes the rules stick because they're part of a story.
When you break this big, beautiful, complicated game down into these smaller, story-driven chunks, you're not just teaching rules anymore. You're inviting people into this world. You're giving them the keys to the kingdom. So now you know how to teach the war. The only real question left is, who are you going to lead to victory?